Hello and welcome back to the next One Piece review and discussion. We are back with the next chapter in the start of the El Bath adventure, and what a chapter, what a reunion to start from, because I'm sure most of you have already read this chapter. It is emotional, it is amazing. I cannot believe we've got it so soon, but I'm glad Oda has done it now, because if Elbaf is to extend over the next couple of years, I'm glad that we get to see out 2024 with this chapter. So I'm ready to just get stuck into this. Without further ado, chapter 1133. Praise, or praise me. It's still roughly translated, but we've got the gist. And we continue with Yamato's pilgrimage. They were chasing down the thief and they were heading towards Kuri. And we've got, obviously, now Hold'em still in action and has attacked and has taken Toma as a hostage. So I'm pretty sure he's going to be swiftly dealt with, seeing how strong Yamato is. So I ain't worried. But last we had left off, we had got so much information about Elbaf, specifically the whole continent itself, more of the characters we're going to meet. So we had obviously Luffy and the other Straw Hats interacting with Gerd and Goldberg, while the others were riding on a rainbow, because rainbows are meant to be sailed across, as Dory and Broggy put it. But we know that Luffy had made a deal or promised with Loki before he then rejoined everyone. We learned that the realms, or the splitting of the Elbaf tree, actually goes underworld, sun, and it was heaven, but also the translation now is astral, which is so much cooler. The astral realm is the top of the tree. So we have that breakdown, that was cool. We then got the full expansive look at the village that we're kind of starting our journey in, and everyone kind of has just about met up. They sort of cross paths on the rainbow and a cloud. And we ended the chapter of a lone figure walking through the forest. We don't know who it is yet. There's still so much speculation on who it's going to be. But we had Lewis Arnott, the explorer, talking about the description of Elbaf. You know, it's a loss for words. This majestic land. I hope you one day go to it. But he finished with one piece of advice: to not overstay your welcome, or do not linger too long in this place. And that's where we left it. So we start this chapter jumping back 22 years to the incident and fallout of Ohara. So we're already getting an idea. This is Robin's chapter, a completely Robin focused chapter. And it is so nice to see. So we see it's not actually from Robin's perspective immediately. It is actually Spandine. So Spandam's dad is talking to reporters, and he's like, the civilian evacuation ship just burst into flames, and the screams in the inferno is something I will never forget. It was the work of Nico Robin. To think she sank all those warships. She is a devil masquerading as an 8-year-old, and thus the devil child sort of persona was born, the warnings were out. We see enforcements, Marines, civilians are in like a panic. They're like, this child is dangerous, and we can't let the full details out to the public because it will traumatize people, just embellishing the story, I guess. But they were like, oh yeah, we saw her, she's a stone cold killer, those eyes are terrible. And we see young Robin eating trash along with like stray dogs, trying to survive, while people are talking about like a lack of empathy, and that she's now got a bounty and there's like pirates ready to hunt her. So this is like really dangerous. And then there's the talk of these mysterious powers she's got, so obviously her devil fruit, and it's like no one is safe around her. People are in a panic and a frenzy because of the media storm surrounding what she did. So there is a heartbreaking moment that we never really got early on. We know Robin struggled a lot during Ennis Lobby and War 7 with the admitting she wanted to live. And we can kind of see it starting here. As a young child, like 8 years old, she is stood on the edge of a cliff, just looking over the precipice. And there is just two flashbacks in her mind of her mother telling her to live, and Saul saying, you're alone right now and it's going to be tough, but someday you will find someone, you will find true friends. So we can see she stood there and she's talking to herself but talking to Saul, and it's like, I'm so afraid, I'm so scared of everyone. This, what she's going through right now at 8 years old is crazy. And she's like, I just need to remember what you taught me, and that is just to laugh. And does his laugh as she leaves the cliff. And we see she's like going up to like books and like kind of like keeping herself like hidden in towns, and she looks at a map and she's like kind of looking at like this blank space, and someone grabs her hand and is like, hey, like, what are you doing? Doesn't realise it's Robin immediately, but we see that she has drew Ohara into the map where it should have been, which is so lovely, but like so heartbreaking. And then she runs again, she's laughing like Saul has taught her to, and it is this sort of cacophony of all the other people saying, she'll just lure you in, those poor souls, she's only out, she'll slit your throat in your sleep, I'm sure we're gonna get it, I hope she drops dead. All these terrible things this poor young girl had to go through to get to here in present day. They make port on the tree, so we're in the sun realm, we see the rainbow that they've cleared, and we are now dropping anchor at the Western Village port. So this is Dorian Broggy's like village on the western side, and we can see that there are people waiting, and we see that as the sort of crew who were with Dorian Broggy make land and sort of take it all in, this majestic place, Broggy points out, he's like, oh look, the others are here too, and they look up and there is a Viking rowboat sailing through the air on clouds. Specifically, the oars are like attached to clouds and are like moving the ship, and they call it Sval, or a mist ship. So everyone is aboard, and we can see that the Sunny is being held by Goldberg. So we get the reunion of the Straw Hats all back together, and everyone is still just trying to take in what they're experiencing, like all these things one after another. And it's Lilith to say, there's islands, there's sea clouds, the bubbles, the rainbows, like everything technology wise is just able to coexist here. It's like perfect. So we see the reunion, we see Nami compliments Robin on her hair, and Robin's like, I see you're getting into the swing of like Elbaf clothing. But we see Luffy immediately make a beeline for Hyruden, and they're all like reunionizing and saying, oh, like, it's so good to see you all. We heard you're already like an emperor now. Like, I can't believe our big boss, but believed it all along. And then he's like, we'll reintroduce you all later, but these are your subordinates as well. And it is a shot of all of the new giant warrior pirates with Road being crucified behind them all. And all the straw hats are like in the palms of each member. And we can see he's like, look, like, this place has been a buzz with excitement ever since we heard of Big Mum's defeat at Wano. And they're all like, Big Mum? Really? Gerd's the one to explain, way back when her and Big Mum used to be friends, in the little child orphanage or when the children used to play. But she committed a unforgivable crime on this island, though, is why she was exiled. But we can see everyone is ready for this party, the toast, the feast that has been sort of planned. And as Luffy and Usopp are excited, they're ready to eat and celebrate, Robin had like kind of asked Luffy, he's like, Luffy, do you mind? And we actually jump to travelling to the southwestern side of the West Village. And it is Gerd in the mist ship taking the Straw Hats to go and meet Saul. And Robin is like, look, I could have gone by myself, really. Like, you didn't all have to come. And they are like, nope, no way, not happening. We can delay the feast. There was no issue with that. We are like wanting to see. And like Jinbei's like, it's just a good excuse to sightsee as well. But we find out that Saul has obviously taken over charge, or is wanted to show Robin the library, so that we're going to head to the school, as Saul is now a history teacher there, which is, I think, so lovely. And there's a beautiful moment from Luffy, and Robin's like, you really didn't have to go out your way to like all this trouble to come. And he says, forget it. As your captain, Robin, I have to greet someone who took care of one of my crewmates. And I was like, oh, that is so lovely. And she's like, where did you hear something so silly? But really sweet. And then Bonnie's still tagging along, but remaining in her kid form now. So I think she's settled on remaining a child for the time being. But we see a brief, momentary flashback of Hyruden and Broggy agreeing, like, we'll get the toast ready. We'll get that, like, mousse that Hyruden's got. You take your time with Saul. So they reach a place called the Warrior Springs. And Usopp comments out loud, even fierce warriors study hard as well, and they talk about the various books that have been kept. And in this Warrior Springs, by the waterside, is a giant building, a library known as the Owl Library. And it is here that a beach has formed. And they're like, how is there a beach here? So Gerd explains that the broken branches, when they fall and just like decay and drop and eventually wither away, it is left sand. Enough so that the waterfalls create water, and the moving of waves and the broken dead branches create sand. So a real life beach has been formed just underneath the Owl Library. And Luffy immediately jumps into action, ready to try and meet this man, to thank him. And it is like, whoa, hold up. This is Robin's reunion. And she's getting like flustered. And immediately someone comes running from the distance and is like, Saul has collapsed. He's fallen over. He can't get up. It is dangerous, and everyone starts to freak out. They're like, we just came to see him. Like, why has this happened? This is a reunion 22 years in the making. Like, he can't just collapse now. And Chopper's like, look, I'm a doctor. I'll examine him. I'll make sure he's okay. You know, we'll get him fixed up. And then this giant like points over, and she's like, he's just over there, collapsed by the water on the sand. You know, he just fell all of a sudden. And Robin starts to laugh because she is onto what he is doing. And they're all like, wait, what are you doing? Like, don't mock the sick. And she's like, he's fine. I'll go and see him by myself. You can all stay here. And they're like, wait, what? And she begins to walk along the beach, and genuinely, like, panel for panel shot of when Robin first met Saul. Walking along the beach, a giant face down, water, sand. It is exactly how it was in chapter 392, when Saul was first introduced, and that is almost like 19 years ago, that chapter. So I'm loving this little sort of callback, and it is exactly what happens, where Saul wakes up, he screams in Robin's face, and he starts to do his laugh, and he's like, did it get you? Did it work? And he sort of himself sees Robin as a young child, and now Robin as a grown woman, and he sees that face, and he's like, oh, you know, you're not a kid anymore, but I just didn't know how to break the ice after all this time. But, you know, it's so nice to see you. And she comments, she's like, you still have the same funny laugh. And he's like, yeah, it is pretty ridiculous, like, but yeah, let me. So he brings her up, and she wants to see a good look at his face. And we see now a full shot of Saul, a giant burn scar across one eye. The man marked by flame. But we also see poor Saul has lost a leg. He has got a wooden like peg leg attached now, and he's covered in burns. And he comments immediately when he sees Robin's face. He's like, you look just like Olvia. You look just like your mother. You're as pretty as her. And she's taken aback. She's like, I look like my mother. And she flashes back to when she last spoke to her mum all those years ago. Like, you know, we can't give up. And, you know, she entrusted the future to Robin. And she's like, talking about these kind eyes, Saul says, that you've got. And he said, did you hear Vegapunk's broadcast, you know? And Robin says, you know, I was actually on the island at the time, so in all the carnage, I didn't quite hear much, but I managed to get it from, like, the papers, from what was said. And it is Vegapunk saying that, you know, history is going to be written by the victors. And Saul is just in his own, like, space, like, talking, like, you know, they are Ohara's legacy now. Those words, all of us are here. The voices of these scholars have been passed on. And Vegapunk himself was a true scientist, you know. He refused to preach about right or wrong. And he risked his life like everyone else. And Ohara and him have took a huge leap to sacrifice themselves to shape the future. And Robin comments, she's like, and you did too. And she's like asking, like, does his scar, like, does it hurt? And he's like, you know what, I'm much harder than I thought I was. You know, when I came to, I was actually like starting to drown in the ocean because the ice must have melted from the inferno of the tree, and I was swept into the water, and later found out that you had managed to survive from all those reports, And he really gets angry now. He's like, and it really ticks me off that they would say such awful things about you. And Robin kind of like smiles and she's like, let's not focus on such dark stuff. But like, Saul, are you not going to praise me for being alive? And he starts to like tear up, and he brings her like into like his sort of like big matted head of hair and beard, and he brings her close. He's like, of course I am, you know, a kid who was up against the entire world. You did a great job staying alive, Robin. 22 long years. Thank you for being such a survivor. I am so glad that we could meet after all this time. And it's in this like sort of moment of embrace where Robin thinks back to her child again. She doesn't want to focus on it, but it comes back when she would scream out in the rain that why was she the only one alive, you know. She couldn't stand it. She wanted to die, and she immediately breaks out into tears as she has missed Saul so much. And Saul himself cries. It is a beautiful 2 panels side by side of such emotion. The long awaited reunion of Saul and Robin. And we get the final sort of ending of the chapter. The rest of the Straw Hats are also just in tears at this moment, you know. There is so much heart and warmth to it. We don't see our more stoic individuals of Zorro and Jinbei, who are just kind of sat watching, who have their like back turned to like the panel, sort of just watching it unfold. But we see Luffy is also sat with Zoro and Jinbei, but the final panel does show Luffy in the brightest of smiles, you know, so happy that he managed to see, you know, this for Robin. It's such a round story arc for her to finally, like, you know, have survived for this. And it's beautiful. It is such a touching chapter. I think Oda's done a really, really nice job. Especially the call back to, like, you know, how they first met. I think that was really well done. But anyway, that is the chapter. I've got a break next week, but there is a chapter just before Christmas. So I will catch you guys then. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Let me know what you thought of the chapter, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.